Thank you for the opportunity for us to present how AI is applied. Hello everyone. My name is Viet Le. I am one of the co-founders of Charisma. And today I would like to propose a new approach to how we can address atrial fibrillation, that is, employing bidirectional artificial intelligence to shift the current paradigm from a reactive response to a medical event to proactive care and early detection. But first, I'd like to invite Dr. Ng to share a story of how we got here.
Thank you, panelists. This has been an incredible discussion. We started our journey developing AI, and we actually went to India. Actually, in May of 2021, we saw an incredible plight and crisis. It actually, literally took down their healthcare system in India, and several of our friends and colleagues actually contacted us here in Seattle. They knew about our work in AI, and they wanted to see if actually we could help. And within about 2 weeks, we actually built our first AI agent that we can actually deploy to India that did risk stratification on some very simple metrics. And the metrics were on your phone. This actually allowed the physicians to be able to take an entire roster of their patients and monitor their patients in the community. And these are relatively high-risk COVID positive patients that would have actually required hospitalization if they were here in the United States. And it worked. It worked incredibly well because it allowed physicians to focus on the very high-risk patients, the one that could potentially progress. And also it allowed the nursing staff to be able to take care and look after and follow up on the low to moderate risk type patients. And at the exact same time, our AI engine monitored these patients sometimes twice a day and continually adjusting the risk and feeding back that risk stratification process back to the physician. This was our eureka moment. And I wanted to get a chance here to be able to demonstrate a little bit of what we built.
Patients enter the system by first receiving an SMS message. Click on the SMS message. The patient will be taken into the application. It is the usual review of systems. We're actually able to ascertain a comparison between the day before and actually the current symptoms to get a sense of which direction the patient is resting. Patients are presented with a classic review of systems, all the different signs and symptoms, and they can easily click on those fields and instantly be able to record them, very similar to how you would do it in clinic, except it's actually done on the patient's phone. In order to capture some additional clinical values, we present the patient with the ability to enter their vital signs. Most individuals now have their pulse oximetry, and if not, a lot of individual already has a blood pressure cuff. If the individual doesn't know how to do those things, there's a question mark that actually brings up the video that teaches them how to do that, which are taken from national medical institution websites. Once the patient completes that, they're actually able to take a picture of any lab values that they have had and be able to send that in directly to our system and our physician. After the patients have entered their data, most physicians actually have to see their patients linearly. Our system sees all the patients simultaneously. And therefore, all the physicians have to do is click on the category of risk that they're looking for. And it brings up the patients that have that high risk category. This is trained by a neural network, looks at all the different parameters, including vital signs and other metrics that you can give it to be able to make that prediction at an eyeball level. As we click on David Liu, one of the high-risk patients, we're actually able to see all of the things that a physician needs to see. What are their past medical history, their allergies and medications? What are their vital signs? Trended in a day-to-day category, being able to see whether they're trending up or trending down in the wrong direction. And additionally, being able to see their day-to-day symptoms as they have logged in the review of systems during their intake. We're actually able to see when the symptoms, again, day 3 or day 4 or day 5, and when the symptoms actually resolve. Looking at all of these things, you can actually put this directly into a machine learning algorithm and be able to make predictions from it. When you're seeing patients, one of the hardest things to get through is actually writing the notes. The notes are usually long, but even more important thing than writing the notes is getting the orders and getting the medical plan for the patient. So because we train the system to understand natural language, we're able to bring the language directly into the system and take the recommendations and the diagnosis directly to the fingertips of the physician. Here we can see that a patient came in with shortness of breath and swelling and is able to accurately predict congestive heart failure. It's because it has seen millions of congestive heart failure patients and know that this is the way to be able to treat them. We treat them with medications like Lasix, for which we can directly add to the orders for the physicians and the nurses to carry out, and also directly add it into our notes. We can document congestive heart failure into the system, and we can also document what the patient has. Medication non-compliance, high risk of coronary artery disease in a patient that has a family history of coronary artery disease, and potentially in a patient that's presenting for the very first time to the emergency department, it is also possible that the patient may actually be having acute myocardial infarction. A lot of these things will be required to be tested for, which the system is capable of doing. The system has already recognized the need for certain medications, including heparin, GI prophylaxis as well. Not to mention taking care of some of the mundane things such as bowel prep and bowel regimen. The system learns every time it sees a patient like this and sees physicians using these particular orders. The system will learn and be rewarded in the system for being able to bring up the best recommendations, the best diagnosis, and the best prescriptions.
So this constitutes an AI platform that is optimized through bidirectional learning. That is, the AI gleans knowledge through continuously monitoring the patient, and the physician learns from the AI through a feedback loop, a loop that starts with an encounter to diagnosis, tests, treatments, through to the patient's outcome and back to the hands of physicians. All the while, it continuously gains knowledge, understanding and honing its diagnostic skills from an ever-expanding number of physicians, patient encounters, and care outcomes. The AI learns from every data point of a physician's encounter and all of the nuggets of knowledge that are otherwise never recorded or shared using existing platforms. Through this reinforcement learning process, the AI continuously improves the GDMT treatment positions for dosage and lengths of treatments based on specific age, gender, ethnicity, weight, comorbidity factor, socioeconomic standings, and many other factors. Whether at the patient's bedside, in the exam room, or even in the patient's home, it captures it all, gleans trends and patterns that are otherwise missed in a current patient care model. Then it begins to build the means to understand patient's outcome even before diagnosis by ingesting the data from disparate sources and modalities. This helps the physicians create treatment models, permitting them to intervene even earlier in the progress of the disease. Needless patient suffering is prevented, countless lives are saved, and medical advances at an increasing pace. Now, I'd like to share a personal story. My wife, 2 open heart surgeries, 16 operations of both failed and successful ablations, and she has COPD. To this day, 43 years later, or 43 years of her life, has been challenging to find the treatments that are not contradicting the lung or heart function. So with a system like this, hopefully we can both advance pulmonary and cardiology treatments in parallel. So working in the background, the AI continuously shadows the physician, learning and gathering raw data, analyzing the physician's thoughts through the notations, and all the while observing and self-evaluating its model based on the patient's outcome as the grounding truth. At that point, the AI has learned, further incrementing the precision of the predictive model. In learning, in the learning loop, as the learning loop continues, building piece by piece, step by step, this is our approach to deriving an atrial fibrillation predictive model. Without distraction, without fatigue, and without limits, the AI learns. So the neural network can learn at an unimaginable scale. It can take an enormous amount of data, identifying statistical meaningful patterns across millions of differential diagnoses and data points that would otherwise be indiscernible to the human mind and unseen by current technology tools. It can do this in near real time and provide feedback in near real time. It becomes a partner in the new paradigm of patient care with physicians and the patient. This is no longer in the future, it is now. It is said that, as Raji mentioned, pictures worth 1,000 words, and that's the one fact that made computer vision so powerful. In medicine, we have more than one picture. We have more than pictures. We have labs, imaging, and importantly, descriptions of the patient's gestalt and their symptoms. This provides one of the most comprehensive sources of assessments of the patient's risk for atrial fibrillation. We can use that to optimize our detection of atrial fibrillation, not within days, weeks, or months, but within a few seconds and delivered to the attending physician during a patient encounter. With our platform, we are leveraging the power of AI, an innovative machine learning process, and with high quality data to learn from, we can use AI to perform prospective validation through deep learning for better detection of atrial fibrillation. This will help permit us to move the needle to an earlier detection, testing, and treatment of AFib. Now, we invite you to join us on this journey. You can be part of this new limitless medicine of the future today. Let me turn back to Dr. Voigtman to open up for questions.